All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Running with Wolves. I am so excited about today's episode because we have Ray and Gabe with us, who are the co-founders of Inflow Law Group, which is honestly, you guys, such a kick-ass law firm. It is so dedicated to creative entrepreneurs and content creators. That's the only people that they work with. And they're business and trademark lawyers. I've worked with them many, many times. They're absolutely phenomenal. So I'm so excited to have you guys on to talk about all things like legal, marketing, and sales. So welcome, Ray and Gabe.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We've been looking forward to this. Your podcast, we've always seen clips of it. We've listened to it a few times, always on point with the marketing advice, but also just the general entrepreneurship advice that we often sometimes share with our clients as well. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to dive right into both of you guys first, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the legal side. So, Ray, I want you first to tell me a little bit about yourself. What made you decide to pursue like brand strategy and contract law for creatives? I want to hear a little bit about the background of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to dive into that. So it all starts a little bit like after law school, right? And after law school, I wasn't really practicing, both Gabe and I weren't practicing what we're practicing now, right? So I was a policy advisor for a local city government here in city of San Diego. And, I was passionate about what I was doing at the time. And I was, environmental policy advisor. And I was just, pursuing what we're all told to do, right? What we're passionate about. And, the environment, climate change is something I was passionate about. And I wanted to basically lend a helping hand, take what I learned in law school and apply it to that. But at the same time, it wasn't really as fulfilling as I wanted it to be. And that's where I was kind of introduced to the idea of ikigai, which is that Japanese kind of proverb or just kind of that concept of living a life that is a happy life, right? And kind of finding that sweet spot of doing something that you're passionate about, that the world needs and that people will pay you for, and that incorporates the skills you can bring to the table, right? And finding that sweet spot there. And with that, I wanted to make sure that we kind of fulfilled what we always wanted to do when we even went to law school for. It was basically helping small business owners or helping creatives, right? Helping our friends build the cool things they're working on, right? Whether that was art, music, acting, whatever it may be, being able to help them pursue their dreams was something that we really found fulfillment in it. And that was when we kind of started the idea of like, how can we do that, right? So looking into the skills I can bring to the table, brand strategy, right? Trademark law, and contract review, right? Looking at the skills we learned in law school and applying it to the people we really want to help, and knowing that because of the way the legal industry just basically was and historically has neglected small business owners and creators, especially with the new boom in the creator economy, we saw that there was an opportunity there to really be helpful in that way. So that's kind of like how we got involved with that and being able to work brand strategy, mainly because I do have an affinity also to marketing in general. I kind of just like the idea of what marketing is, and marketing is how we make ideas spread, right? And at the end of the day, being able to help other people spread ideas worth spreading is really fulfilling in doing that, especially with trademarks and marketing strategy and brand strategy. So that's exactly how we got kind of started with that.
I love that. How did you guys first get exposed to the online space? I actually don't even think that I know this, because obviously there's like brick and mortar small businesses, but then the online space is like its own beast, right? For sure.
Yeah. I think I ended up kind of being kind of our ideal client in a way. And it kind of goes back to even before I went to law school. I opened up a brick and mortar tattoo shop. So I've been a business owner for about 13 years. And I don't tattoo myself. I just opened it up as a business owner. And so early on, Ray and I talked about, helping the small businesses and, kind of like helping people like myself, or like his mom who owned a small, beauty salon, his sister owned a yogurt shop, or like I said, myself with the tattoo shop. So early on, we said, we want to help those small businesses kind of get their legal ducks in a row. But at the same time, around the shutdown, right, which, I was actually practicing criminal law at that time. I was doing the jury trials. I was doing criminal defense. But I had a Star Wars account that, I'm a big Star Wars collector. I'm a fan. And, I've been in that, content creator space. And around that time, my account started blowing up, right? I got like 500,000 followers on TikTok. 100 and something thousand on Instagram, and it was growing, and I was starting to get these brand deals. And one of the first ones I got when I reached out to Ray, and I was like, check out how like predatory this contract is. Like, they want me to sign over all my rights, and it's like an exclusivity clause and all that. And that really, it was around that time where there was a big shift in that creator economy. And again, I was kind of part of it because of my Star Wars accounts. And I think that was kind of a way for us to analyze kind of how that creator economy was growing, because we had firsthand experience with my accounts, right? And then we started noticing the growth, and we started noticing a bunch of other creators, kind of just become businesses themselves. And that kind of led to us brainstorming on how can we help creators protect themselves, right? Again, I was getting these contracts. They don't know I'm an attorney, and they were trying to take advantage of me. I was like, imagine how many creators out there are getting taken advantage of by these brands that are predatory. Let's do something about that, and let's help them protect themselves and really focus on that. And that's, that was just part of it, right? That we started having those conversations and decided to really focus on the creator economy, and developing, the subscription model, kind of how it changed from small business to kind of more of a creator subscription model. So that's kind of how we got into it. I mean, obviously we're of the generation where social media has been around, for a long time now. For us, we've been involved in social media. It's always been something that we've been passionate about, and it's something that it's not very commonly kind of practiced in the legal profession, right? We had a lot of, when we first launched the firm, we have a lot of our older colleagues kind of pushing back on it. Like, wait, what do you mean? Like, you're going to represent TikTokers? And what do you mean you're going to represent, influencers with like doing dance moves? And it's like, no, like you're not understanding like the potential of like the marketing potential of influencers. So anyways, that's basically how we kind of got into that space a little bit.
I love that. I actually did not know that about you, so now I'm 100% going to go look up your Star Wars account after this. That's amazing. I love that though, because it kind of gave you both sides really to like what creators are experiencing, and then also the legal side of things. So I think that's such a cool introduction into the business model you guys have. Okay, I want to dive into the legal side of things, because I know a lot of our listeners and followers, to my knowledge, don't necessarily understand the full extent to a lot of the legal side of things with marketing and sales. So I wanted to start by asking you guys about some FTC regulations and how you kind of feel like that applies to online content creators and entrepreneurs. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts around that.
Yeah. So just like the FTC regulations apply to any business, any brick and mortar business or any corporation, it applies especially as well to small businesses doing, anything online, like whether you're a coach or consultant, you run an agency. FTC regulations basically protect consumers, right? And they protect consumers from deceptive marketing, from being taken advantage of, and things of that sort. So, then the biggest concern usually that we have for small business owners is that they don't understand that these FTC regulations, one, exist, and two, apply to them, and exactly what they are, because there's a bunch of them, right? There's a lot of different ones. Especially when it comes to, let's say, social media endorsements or just how you advertise on your website, the types of messaging you're doing, right? So there is a slew of them, especially specifically with marketing, and a big thing is that a lot of people understand or realize that, hey, like I'm a small business owner, right? What's the chances of the FTC cracking down on me, right? And it's true, right? The FTC isn't cracking down on every small business owner for every violation they're making, but they are keeping tabs, right? So that's how they kind of work, right? They're keeping tabs on certain businesses, and they kind of keep an eye on how long they're being deceptive or how long they're breaking the rules. And then once those fines tally up, that's when they enforce, because then they notice that bad behavior is becoming a pattern. And then they sometimes will send a warning letter before they do any enforcement action and assess any penalties, but that's how they kind of work. But more so than that, even if that's not even a possibility, right? Because not every business owners being attacked, like being like, I don't know, kind of spied on by the FTC in that sense.
Yeah.
But beyond that, and this is something that you're probably familiar with, Savannah, is that if people are engaging, or if your business is engaging in this kind of deceptive marketing, beyond being, getting in trouble with the FTC, it's also just, it affects the way you can build trust online, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of these rules and regulations are pretty straightforward, right? If you're lying about what your products or services can do for someone, then that's going to be known by your consumers, by your previous clients. They're going to share that information. It's not a good look, right? So anytime you're doing like any unethical marketing beyond just getting in trouble for it, people will feel that, and the market will respond to that as well.
Right. I was going to say, I almost feel like you get in trouble with your audience first rather than the FTC, but it's quite interesting. I actually had a couple of clients ask me recently. They're like, hey, there was a bunch of new FTC things that went around talking about specifically, like I have a CPA client who was basically asking questions around like the regulations of what they did for their clients and things like that. So I do know that people are paying attention to it. And I think that there's this perception that maybe it's like bigger and scarier than it is. It's like, just tell the truth in your marketing, and for the most part, you'll be okay, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the things that a lot of small businesses miss is kind of realizing the potential of social media marketing and social media just in general, right? Because, again, some of them may know that there's these FTC regulations, and maybe they're like, you know what, like we don't have to, they're not going to come down on us. But that's the thing, like with social media, you just never know when a post is going to blow up. You never, right? I mean, anyone that's been in that space understands that sometimes it's the least likely, posts that end up going viral. And, that's the one thing we always tell our clients is that you have to be careful, because, one slip up and, you're all of a sudden your post goes super viral and you're not following these regulations. Obviously there's going to be eyes on that, post on your account. So, it does apply to everyone across the board, small businesses, small creators, bigger businesses, just because of the potential of that viral moment, right?
Right. If there's anything that you feel like listeners could take away from today's episode around FTC regulations, are there any just kind of like core things that they should know or be aware of, or just best practices that you guys think would be important to share?
Yeah. And we could probably just kind of like, I guess, cherry pick some of the important ones. Because once again, the FTC has plenty of regulation. The FTC is a massive
I know there's
agency,
plenty.
And it applies to every industry, right? But for the common ones, and I think there have been some updates, but obviously, if we're talking about like social media, right? Whether you're a business owner, leveraging social media, kind of influencer or content creator endorsement marketing, or if you're just doing testimonials, or, when we're talking about disclaimers and stuff like that, we can kind of go on for a lot of these different ones. But I guess let's start off with endorsements, right? So influencer endorsements and content creator endorsements, right? But it's not just for influencers and content creators. We get that question a lot, right? Like the FTC guidelines say this is, the guidelines for influencer marketing. And sometimes people say, well, I don't classify myself as an influencer, so do these regulations apply to me? And they do. They apply to content creators who are also doing brand endorsements. They also apply to Jane Doe and Joe Schmo, who, don't really have a commercialized social media presence, but maybe just a personal account, but they're a business owner. Or maybe their wife or partner owns a business, or their parents do. And if they're sharing and saying, hey, I really like, if my dad owns a donut shop and I'm on social media saying, hey, go check out my dad's donut shop, or, go check out this donut shop. They have the best donuts in town. I'm making an endorsement for another business that I do have a material benefit for. And because of the aspect of social media, the fact that could potentially go viral, and because there's a lot of eyes seeing that, there's a lot of consumers who will go to that donut shop based on plain Ray's suggestion, and if they don't like, it's a material for them to know that I do have a material benefit, because the FTC says if you are related to someone who owns a business and you're endorsing that business or product or service, there's a material benefit for you, and you have to disclose that, right? You have to at least say in the social media video that your dad or what that material, or what that relationship is, so people can make a better determination of whether they want to go spend their money that way, right? And we can also get into like what method or what's that form of how that endorsement disclosure would look like. And I'm gonna let Gabe kind of talk about that, because this is kind of like his realm, because he literally advises on this and does it himself for his own brand endorsements.
Right. And yeah, I guess one of the biggest misconceptions with that, right, is, the whole hashtag ad, right? I think everyone's heard that, right? It's like, okay, like I'm covered by just putting a little hashtag that's like sponsored or like hashtag ad. But sometimes they'll hide it in like, a big chunky like paragraph of hashtags, right? Well, that's not enough. And in fact, that's being deceptive, right? Like hiding it in those hashtags could get you into trouble. The general rule, and obviously there's a lot of ways to do it, but the general rule is that, look, there needs to be kind of almost like 3 methods of disclosure, right? You have to say it. If it's a video, if it's a reel, you have to let your audience know. So even just saying it, or if there's some type of like subtitles or something, expressing it, you have to tell them, hey, I'm partnering up with this brand, or I'm sponsored by this brand, or they're sending me this stuff so I can show you. Clearly saying it is kind of the first step. The second one would be actually writing it in the description, right? Thank you so much for so-and-so brand for sending me this, blah, 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 right? And actually express that you're working with them. The hashtags also, right? You want to put those hashtags, but making them very clear, very upfront where it's there. And then the last thing is actually utilizing some of the tools that the social media platform gives you to kind of notify people. And the social media platforms are getting really good, their AI, at spotting some of this stuff, right? So even the people that don't do it, their AI algorithm automatically recognize, hey, this seems like a sponsored ad to us. Do you want to check the little box to make sure it's sponsored, right? So, social media platforms are starting to understand the importance of disclosures, not only just because, they also have to regulate that, right? They have to be, because, there's laws that basically make them liable if they know that this infringement's going, or that this, the illegalities, I guess, I don't even know if you want to call them that, but if they're aware of that and they're not doing anything about it, they could be also held liable. So they're going to try to protect their platform and make sure that, whoever's posting something is clearly saying it. And in fact, a lot of them, they're one step ahead now, and even for the AI disclosures, right? Which, I mean, we're probably not going to get into that, but I think that's a whole other landscape too of disclosures that are going to start popping up, and the Federal Trade Commission is going to, start regulating it and things like that. But yeah, so those steps, make sure you say it, make sure it's in the description, hashtags, and then obviously using the tools that the platform has for you.
That's great to know, because I was out here being like, yeah, hashtag ad. You're telling them, right? So I love that it's all 3. So that's great for people to know, even people who've been in marketing for as long as I have. That's great for me to know as well. So, and I think that that's a very common misconception for a lot of people as well, right? Another really common question that I get asked a lot is around, like you were talking about, testimonials, or like claiming different results that you can create for customers or clients with your product or service. What are your guys' recommendations for making sure you're following regulations there?
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton, right? So even like, let's start off with just the claims, right? When it comes to making claims, right? Every time you make a claim, you are basically creating a warranty, right? Every time you say, if you sign up for my course, you'll make 10K every month, after 1 month of taking my course, whatever, right? That is a claim. And it's not just a claim, it's a warranty. It's an express warranty. That's what the FTC looks at it as, right? Saying that, hey, if someone signs up expecting to make 10K a month and they fail to do that, well, you almost promised them that, right? So you want to avoid things like that, right? And even beyond, it goes even more nuanced than that, right? It's not, even if you're not making that express claim, if you're sharing your own income statements, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
if that's used to promote a course or a service you provide, then once again, you're almost basically making an express warranty saying, hey, if you sign up for my course, if you take my investment advice, whatever it may be, you also can make this type of income that I'm making, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, unless if it's true, that's good on you. But once again, if it's not true for everyone who can sign up, then you want to avoid making statements like that, right? And if you are making those statements, you want to make sure you're doing the proper disclaimers, right? So disclaimers, similar to the word disclosure, but disclaimer is just saying like, hey, I'm making claims, but I'm disclaiming the claim, right?
Yeah.
Just because I use this system to lose 10 pounds in 6 weeks doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that you'll lose 10 pounds in 6 weeks, because I can't control everything you're doing in your life. There are other factors other than just taking this advice. You have to actually execute on it.
Right.
And you also might have health issues and blah, 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 right? There's other factors involved that, although I'm making this claim, I'm disclaiming it, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
probably going to be, successful for everyone involved, but it worked for me and it worked for my clients, and here's their stories. But also, just because it worked for them, it might not work for you, right? So even though it sounds like obvious, you still need to disclaim it, because every time you're sharing results, the FTC is going to look at it as, hey, if you're sharing results to make more sales, then you're almost, once again, creating a warranty, right?
Yeah.
And he goes even broader. We've seen FTC crackdowns on some finance bros, right? And this is a common thing where, we see these reels of these guys who, whether they own a Lamborghini or maybe they're just renting it for a day to make marketing material, if they're, using it to also advertise finance
Yeah.
tips or whatever, or sell their investment course, they are making a claim saying, hey, if you sign up for this course, you can afford a Lamborghini, right? Even if they don't even make any other income claims, just the fact that a car is there because it's not a normal car, it's kind of an affluent car, right? It's a luxury vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And because a common consumer might look at that and be like, wow, like Ray is, a successful investor. He owns a Lamborghini, obviously. And he's saying, basically, if you take this course, you too can attain this lifestyle. So once again, just
Mm-hmm.
having a car, and we've seen this in like some FTC crackdowns, literally in legal documents where they posted photos of like, hey, this is all the times the the infringer basically claimed that they were making so much money, and these are pictures of like these cars they owned and kind of like posted on their websites and social medias, and we're using this against them in this situation to show that, hey, they were making claims that people can be successful and attain this lifestyle, right? So even that
Mm-hmm.
can be considered a claim that, once again, if they don't properly disclaim, can get them in trouble. So
Yeah.
a lot of different things. So yeah, there's a lot of different types of disclaimers that you want to basically, when it comes to results, when it comes to income, when it comes to testimonials, that you're properly disclaiming, saying like, hey, this isn't normal results, or they, if I am sharing Gabe's results from him taking my course, please know that he's an outlier situation. That's why I'm even doing this in the first place, to show his results. But the average results are probably X, Y, and Z, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
how you want to approach those things. Unless, and even saying like, hey, I usually make 30K a month. Well, that better be true, because if you're just making that up, that can also be an issue. Something wrong with saying you're making 30K a month and making those income claims, but know that you have to disclaim that, once again, properly disclaim it. And also it has to be true. It can't, obviously
Right.
anything that's a lie is also deceptive. So
Yeah, and that's great to know that it's not just the messaging, it's also the visual piece too, right? Like the cars and the photos and the videos and everything. Because I think that when people think about marketing, they think about maybe just the words that you're saying that could potentially get you in trouble, but it can also be the visuals too. So that's really great to know for sure.
yeah. And this is big in like anyone who does educational kind of services, right?
Right.
Anyone who is a course creator or anyone who's a consultant and saying, hey, this is how I built my law firm, and now I'm offering a service helping other lawyers build their law firm. And anytime I'm saying, my law firm helped me get my dream home, right? Like
Right.
that, I'm also like claiming that, hey, you can also buy a dream home worth whatever this home is yourself, right? So I have to understand that the visuals and the messaging, there's a reason why I'm doing that. Obviously, I'm doing that to persuade people that I'm successful. You too can be successful. So if anytime you're doing that general aspect in your marketing, you want to check the boxes and make sure you're not tripping over any deceptive, once again, or non-transparent marketing. And once again,
Right.
Savannah, I think you also probably notice this too, is like when you see that, it feels unethical, right? When a finance bro is, walking around his Lamborghini and kind of like showing it off to promote something. It just doesn't feel right, especially if it's not guaranteed. So,
and I think it's one of those things with marketing just in general, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the purpose of marketing is kind of the bottom line, right? It's to sell something, right? And it comes back down to sales and tracking those sales. And I think that's where, there's kind of that weird, contradiction there, because it's like, marketing strategists and people that know marketing, they know these techniques on how to, it is a little manipulative, right, towards people. And that's where the FTC really kind of is trying to protect the consumer, because they understand that marketing can be very deceptive, right? And again, a lot of creators and a lot of businesses and just marketing strategists tend to kind of try to shift towards the sales side, right? Understanding that, look, if you put all these disclosures in your post, it might draw away from sales, because then people are going to be like, it's not, might not work for me. Or like, if sometimes, people that are doing social media, right? You notice if you make it a sponsored post and you're very clear on a sponsorship, the algorithm will tank it a lot of the times, right? It won't push it out as organic, just like your normal post, right? So there's that fine line between making, a marketing post organic and really on brand. And that's why it's really important to stay honest with your followers and stay, very honest with the people that are depending on you for your opinion, because, it has to come from an organic, like, recommendation. As soon as it becomes a little more towards the marketing side, then you start running into a lot of problems, like I said, with Federal Trade Commission violations and, deceptive marketing techniques. But yeah, it's a very fine line, but it's a very interesting fine line, right? And we always love talking to our clients about that, because, finding those creative ways to comply while also, making it as part of your content as possible. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, even on the marketing side, it comes back to like your values as a brand and as a business, right? There are so many people, I think specifically in the education space, at least that I see, where I do see such unethical marketing. And I'm like, I can't wait till they get cracked down on, because for me, the biggest thing is really being ethical with your audience, being honest and being transparent with them, and then allowing them to have autonomy to make a decision. That's why we talk about marketing in the way that we do, because I think that is so important. And it's something that people fall victim to so frequently, which is very disappointing, because then in turn, when they actually need the help, like investing in marketing or sales support, and they've been burned in the past, it prevents them from getting that kind of support because they're scared because of the false advertising that they saw, right? So it comes full circle. So I really think it is for the betterment of everybody to just have ethical marketing and do the right thing. So yeah, it's, even though it sounds simple, it's not, obviously, for a lot of people, clearly. I'm curious to know, for you guys, what some unique challenges are that you guys have seen kind of face when it comes to like staying compliant with marketing regulations. I think this kind of goes along with what I was just saying. I don't know if you guys have any like interesting stories of things that you didn't necessarily think would be a violation or would come across as a violation, even just in messaging or the visuals that we were kind of just talking about. But if you have any interesting stories to share, I would love to hear about those.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have like any interesting stories from like with our own clients. I think just, kind of, we mentioned before, those examples of the visuals being used is kind of like the biggest ones that were like, oh, wow, we didn't know that was a violation, or we didn't know like that would be interpreted that way. So that was always eye-opening. But I think the biggest concern sometimes when it comes to like business owners is just navigating these rules, right? Obviously, we don't want to chill anyone from marketing, right? We don't want people to be creative and, not market their business just because they're scared of like doing the wrong thing. But once again, it just comes down to how authentic are you being with your audience and how transparent are you being with your audience? And there's practical reasons for doing that, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, for example, for us, we're trademark attorneys. And when we file someone's trademark, we can't guarantee their trademark will be registered, right? We have to be very upfront with them from the beginning, because this is going to save our end at the end of the process when it doesn't go through. And if we're promising them like, hey, your trademark is definitely going to go through, and we're making that claim and we're saying that the entire process, and then it doesn't, well, guess what? They're going to be upset, because they're going to be like, you never told us they wouldn't go through. So it's really on our end to say, hey, we have to educate our client from the beginning, saying this is the likelihood of it going through or not. And we have to attack that first. And guess what? Sometimes we might not make sales because people want that guarantee, right? Some consumers want the guarantee of what they're investing will happen that way, right? And this is the same thing, I'm sure, in your industry, right? You can't guarantee that people are going to be making sales based on a certain marketing strategy you help them implement, but you have to be upfront with them and saying like, hey, it could work or it could not. It just, there's a lot of things outside of my control and outside of your control that will, determine that. So that's an important thing. So just navigating these rules are important. And I'll give an example. Is just like some of the recent FTC rules that recently came out had to do with paid reviews, right? So whether Google reviews or Yelp reviews, right? And they said you can't, and it was, a lot of people just thought you can't pay for reviews anymore. You can't give anyone a benefit for a review, but it's not necessarily true. You can't, what they really meant was that you can't pay anyone for a positive review. You can't pay anyone for a negative review. So you can't basically, like, you can't pay someone for a specific positive or negative review, right? And, but you can still incentivize people to leave reviews, whether that's, promising them a gift card or, promising them a discount on services or future services if they leave you a review. So sometimes it's navigating what the rules are is a big challenge for a lot of business owners, because there's a lot of confusing information out there when, sometimes when these FTC rules drop, everyone is kind of commenting on it on Threads or on Twitter or on LinkedIn saying like, you can't do this anymore. But it's not necessarily true. It's just, getting the proper advice. And sometimes that's the role we play in letting our clients know like, no, that's not right. You can still do it. You have to do it in this way though. Or you have to restrict the way you're actually doing it. So sometimes it's getting clarity on the specific rules and knowing how you can navigate that so you can continue doing what you're doing or change course if necessary is important.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything else that you guys can think of outside of just even the FTC regulations that are just some common mistakes that you see a lot of business owners make that could be pretty easily avoided with any legal guidance? I don't know if there's anything else that kind of comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things, especially for smaller business owners, is when they're doing a lot of their marketing, especially influencer marketing, sometimes they'll go in it without like specific contracts to, especially for like the photographers or like the people making the content. And I think that's the one thing that, we always warn small businesses, about that, when you're working with a marketing company or working with somebody that's creating content to market, to make sure there's proper contracts signing over those rights, because the way intellectual property law works is that basically the creator of those, videos owns those videos or music or pictures or graphics or whatever, anything that has some type of artistic value to them, the artist owns it. And a lot of business owners will, they'll get, people that are friends or, they just happen to know someone to create something for them, a graphic or a song or jingle or whatever, or like a quick video, like of their, let's say a restaurant of their food, and not realizing that there's a lot of responsibility that's going to be attached to that video, not only from a Federal Trade Commission standpoint, right, but also from an ownership standpoint, right, of who owns that content. So I think, besides the FTC regulations, just making sure that, small business are using the proper contracts to make sure that the stuff that they are putting out there belongs to them. And again, making sure that the creator, who was ever making the video, is complying with some of those, FTC regulations.
Yeah, and to
Yeah.
piggyback on that is just, and this is like an actual issue that we've seen becoming more of an issue, is just making sure that when you are utilizing, assets, whether those are photographs or videos in your marketing, whether it's blogs or your social media content, that you own the rights to commercial rights, basically, to advertise and promote your business using that, right? So we've seen a few kind of like, this is a kind of like a tactic that we usually call them like copyright trolls, right? Where it's like we see these photographers engage these agencies that are really like basically say, hey, like upload your whole portfolio here and we'll scan the internet of anyone using your images to promote their business, right? And now with AI technology, they can easily find someone's blog from 2 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
for 2 years they've been using this image for so long, and now we're going to go after them and demand that they pay us like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 more dollars, right? To basically like for copyright infringement, right? To basically recuperate the damages that you could have made if you just licensed it to them, right? We've had a few clients who got those notices, and sometimes they're legit, and sometimes there's ways to push back and just ignore it because maybe it didn't meet like the standard for them to actually pursue like a copyright infringement case or anything like that, right? But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they do, and because of that ends up being like a huge kind of like stressful situation to be in, because now you're getting this scary kind of letter or this
Mm-hmm.
email from this agency that's saying like, hey, you're doing copyright infringement. Even if you take it down, you still done it, and you owe us this amount of money. If not, we might pursue like legal action against you. And once again, even if you did it for one day, right? If you had the blog post up for one day or multiple days, it doesn't matter. It still was copyright infringement. So just making sure that you're using, in all of your marketing, whether it's your newsletter, your, once again, your blogs, your social media, that you're being aware that you own the rights or you have the commercial licensing rights to use that image through like a stock photography platform that you're paying for. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of good ones now that you can kind of use and get some great stock photos if you're using stock photos in your marketing, instead of just kind of like downloading something from Google and posting it, right? So definitely something to
Right.
avoid in marketing to, not commit copyright infringement.
Yeah. I've heard you guys talk about that before, and that was wild to me. I actually didn't even know agencies like that existed. So good for us
Yeah.
to note for sure. Okay, I want to talk really quickly about your guys' subscription model. So you obviously use that to kind of offer legal advice. Is there
Mhm.
anything that entrepreneurs should be aware of when they're offering a subscription-based service on the legal side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like the FTC rules, there are rules against, basically that protect consumers from reoccurring payments, right? So when offering a subscription, it's important, right, to let your subscribers or your potential subscribers know what they're signing up for, right? Especially, it gets more tricky if you're offering like a free subscription for the first month, right? So we don't see this often with small business owners. This is mostly going to be with like bigger platforms, right? Like Netflix, Hulu, New York Times,
Mm-hmm.
right? They usually say, hey, sign up. You get a discount for your first 2 months, or you get it's free for the first 4 weeks or whatever. A lot of small business owners don't do that. Usually it's just sign up and pay right away. But there are certain disclosures, once again, that need to be made when that basically like upon sign up, right? So just like we always recommend with any service or any product that someone's buying online, there needs to be terms and conditions for the sale or for the sign up process, that people know what they're signing up for. And not just the terms and conditions, but also a checkbox that say they agree to the terms and conditions, but also a checkbox saying that they expressly agree to pay a certain amount per month or per whatever cycle you're offering, right? So this is something we had to update ourselves, right? Before, we just had a terms and conditions for signing up for our program, which is basically like the engagement letter for our services, or basically our engagement contract for our services, and what the scope of work is and everything that we'll provide when you do sign up for our membership. But on top of that, we don't have just a checkbox saying you agree to the terms and conditions anymore, that also have the payment information in the terms and conditions. There's also now a checkbox that says, I, the client, expressly agree to, be responsible for a $79 a month payment every month, right? And that, once
Mm-hmm.
again, is just required now by some of the subscription laws, both federal and by state level. For example, like California has like certain subscription laws that say like there needs to be express disclosure of what the client is signing up for, what the price is every month. And on top of that, it has to be easily cancelable, right? There can't be any obstacles to cancellation if you are on a subscription process, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to, don't put any like surveys they have to do, like go through, or they have to watch a video, or don't like ask them any questions. It should just be a click box. Like, don't make them call, don't make them like send an email or anything like that. There should be it should be as easy as it was to sign up to cancel. So those are kind of like the big rules when it comes to offering subscription payments.
Amazing. And just kind of in that same vein, really quick before we go, I want to ask you guys, obviously one of your big goals and values is to make legal services more accessible, right? So when it comes to educating your clients, is there anything specifically that you guys do with your subscription model, or just with your services in general, that kind of follows those values and those guidelines in terms of making it more accessible for people?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is our goal, right? Our goal is to make legal accessible to anyone. And that's why we priced it again at that $79 level, because we wanted to make sure that anyone, whether it's a small creator or a very small business kind of starting up, is able to get the proactive advice that they are going to need to be successful, right? To make sure that we give them, again, proactive advice. And I think that's one of the biggest thing that kind of defines us and is different than most other law firms, because, big law firms, they depend on the problems, right? They depend on fixing the problems on the back end. That's where the money really is, right? They don't focus on proactive advice because, again, with a quick phone call or with a quick email or a quick Zoom call, we can prevent a problem that's going to cost our clients tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future, where sometimes it's against, the interest of that other law firm, because again, they're going to benefit off, fixing the problem. So one of the things that we wanted to do is provide, proactive advice, help them throughout some of the biggest obstacles that we see, as starting a business, whether it's a normal brick and mortar business or like an online content creative business, to make sure they're protected, right? From, having the proper contracts, right? And we always talk about those 4 layers of protection. Having the contracts in place, right? The proper ones, because a lot of people just, Frankenstein contracts from the internet, and it's probably not doing what they think it's doing, right? So having proper contracts, having a proper, entity, right? A lot of people, start thinking about, LLC versus corporation versus sole prop versus the S corp, filing. So being there and being able to help them through that and help them actually establish the right entity, which is what we do with that subscription model, giving them advice as far as like, protecting their personal assets, right? Making sure that they're separating the business assets from their personal assets. And then a big part of it, and a big part of the subscription, is, their intellectual property rights, right? Understanding how to utilize them, how to protect them. And then again, even helping them through, the trademark process. Although that's a separate service with us, we could still have those conversations and really early on start talking about branding, their company, their name, to make sure that they're picking a name that's ultimately going to be trademarkable, right? A lot of people don't realize that, and they launch with, a name, not knowing that they're already infringing on someone else's rights. So even just having those proactive conversations before, the problems happen is crucial. And it's what the subscription model is really intended for, is to really be there, as part of their team, and, being able to contact us whenever, however is easier for them. And again, providing that proactive advice.
Yeah, I love that. Well, before we go, last call, is there anything else that you feel like is pertinent or important to share with our audience about just deceptive marketing, FTC regulations, trademarks, disclaimers, anything? I know that we talked a lot about a lot of different stuff today, but if there's anything that you guys want to share, now's the time for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think just to wrap it up, once again, it's like, when someone might hear, oh, deceptive marketing, it's like, well, I don't do that, or I try my best to avoid it. Well, this is the FTC regulations are there just as guideposts, right? Even if you don't think something's deceptive, the FTC coming out with rules and regulations are great kind of educational opportunities to look at, like, all right, what are they saying? Why are they saying that? And can I take advantage of that, right? Obviously, if they're coming out with these rules, then there's probably some of your competitors who are breaking those rules. And once again, the audience of those competitors are probably feeling the uneasiness that
Mm-hmm.
marketing kind of, leads to, right? And you can take advantage of that by not doing that, and, kind of pivoting and your messaging or whatever it may be, so you could resonate a little bit better with your audience. So
Mm-hmm.
just from, it's not even like thinking about legal. That's like the biggest challenge we always have is like, legal. A lot of people have an idea of like, oh, like legal things, right, are boring, and I'm just going to have someone else take care of that. Right? I'm going to hire a lawyer to just take care of all those things. It's really
Mm-hmm.
important to understand and feel empowered about legal protections, right? Because it's not just having a contract in place, right? It's about going through the process and having the tough conversation with your collaborator so you can establish a better relationship, right? Literally, negotiating a contract is going to build more trust and lead to a better relationship than if you had just avoided that, right? So having that tough conversation up front that the contract forces you to have will lead to a better outcome at the end, right? That's what we
Mm-hmm.
want our clients to understand, right? It's not just like, oh, we have to sign this contract because the lawyers want us to sign this contract, right? Or I need to protect my revenue, I need to sign this contract, or you need to sign this contract that I have, right? It's more so like, hey, like, we're agreeing to work together, whether you're my client, whether you're my collaborator, whether you're a potential partner in the business. We need to figure these things out so we can avoid, some of the hiccups down the road. And that's how you
Mm-hmm.
want to look at everything, right? It's not just, oh, I need a trademark registration because it's something that my investors want one day, for me to
Right.
have, and I'm going to sell the business, right? No, the importance of a trademark is to, one, exclusively own your brand, not have, scammers take your trademark, like take your handle and, scam your audience, right? It's those things, right? It's basically finding out the reasons and benefits of understanding legal, how you apply it to your business, and then thus giving you a better advantage, right? And that's exactly how
Mm-hmm.
corporations play. Corporations don't have lawyers there just to screw their, potential partners over, or to screw consumers over, or, trick anyone. They're there to
Right.
help basically communicate the importance of these protections and how they can be advantageous and give you a better leverage in basically competing with other brands. So that's what we want. I think the biggest takeaway at the end of the day is to not turn, because guess what? All your competitors are also feel the same way about legal as you do, but there's an advantage there in understanding it and understanding, like, okay, how do I use these things that other people are neglecting to give myself a competitive advantage? So I think that's, once again, what we would love people to take away from this.
Yeah.
Said.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, tell our audience a little bit about where they can find you online. If they need legal advice, how they can get access to your subscription program. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can go to our website at iminflow.com, and there you're going to see, all our services and everything that we provide, including our subscription model. The subscription is $79 a month. It's month to month, so there's no like hard commitment there. And yeah, we provide, unlimited consultations. We become part of your team, document reviews. We have a lot of templates that you can, grab, that are already vetted by us to make sure that you're using the proper documents. Plus, if you are interested in other services like trademarks or like a custom contract, you get 15% off that. So that's all on, on our website, but then on social media, because social media is kind of where our business comes from, and where that's where our clients live, and that's where we're kind of the most passionate about. So yeah, you can find us on Instagram, on TikTok at inflow law group is the handle. So yeah, you can find us there. And obviously we have a podcast as well that we stream called Rise and Flow, where we talk about interesting topics regarding the law, have guests on some of our clients to talk about their successes and stuff. So yeah, you can find us all there.
Amazing. I love that. And we'll link all of that in the show notes. And then I know that you guys also have your template shop. So we'll link that in there too if anyone needs that. But thank you guys so much again for being on the show today. It was so much fun. I absolutely love talking about this with you and kind of deep diving there. I think it's going to be really, really helpful for our audience. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.